In the depths of a Nevada desert, where the sun bleaches metal bones white and the wind carries whispers of forgotten wars, lies a secret that governments would kill to possess. Here, among the twisted remains of military machines and experimental weapons, a signal has been broadcasting for 37 years, a signal that should not exist, coming from technology that officially never was. Marcus Chun thought he was just another salvage operator looking for scrap metal to feed his family. His combat robot, Ajax, was supposed to be decommissioned junk, a relic from a war the world tried to forget. Neither of them expected to stumble upon a discovery that would shatter everything they believed about humanity's place in the universe. What they found in that mechanical cemetery wasn't just another piece of military hardware. It was proof that someone or something had been watching, waiting, and planning long before the first human ever looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. This is the true story of two unlikely heroes who uncovered the most dangerous secret in human history, buried beneath tons of twisted steel and government lies. A secret so explosive that powerful forces would stop at nothing to silence them forever. The signal is still broadcasting. The question is, who's listening? Marcus Chun wiped the sweat from his forehead as he surveyed the endless expanse of rusted metal before him. The Mojave machine graveyard stretched for miles in every direction, a testament to humanity's endless appetite for war and destruction. Twisted hulks of tanks, helicopters, and experimental vehicles created a metallic mountain range against the harsh desert landscape. The morning sun was already brutal, promising another day of temperatures that would melt the soles off a man's boots. Ajax stood motionless beside him, the combat robot's sensors scanning the terrain with mechanical precision. The 8-foot-tall machine had been Marcus's companion for 3 years now, ever since he'd pulled the damaged unit from this very graveyard and somehow managed to bring it back to life. Ajax's original military designation had been scrubbed from his memory banks, leaving only fragments of combat protocols and an oddly human-like personality that had emerged during the repair process. "Another day in paradise, buddy," Marcus muttered, adjusting the straps of his salvage pack. His weathered hands showed the scars of countless encounters with sharp metal edges and chemical burns. At 45, he looked older than his years, the desert sun and hard living having carved deep lines into his face. The graveyard was officially classified as a military disposal site, but everyone knew it was really where the government dumped its most embarrassing failures. Prototype weapons that didn't work, experimental aircraft that couldn't fly, and robots that went haywire during testing all found their final resting place here. For salvage operators like Marcus, it was both a gold mine and a death trap. The military contractors paid good money for rare metals and functional components, but the risks were enormous. Unexploded ordnance, chemical leaks, and unstable power cores turned every salvage run into a game of Russian roulette. Marcus, Ajax's voice had a distinctly synthetic quality, but 3 years of partnership had taught Marcus to read the subtle variations that indicated the robot's mood. "I'm detecting an anomalous energy signature approximately 2 kilometers northeast. It's unlike anything in my database." Marcus squinted in the direction Ajax indicated. All he could see was more twisted metal and the occasional dust devil dancing between the wrecks. Anomalous how? The signal appears to be structured, possibly a form of communication. However, the frequency is not consistent with any known human technology. This gave Marcus pause. In 3 years of working together, Ajax had never encountered anything his extensive military databases couldn't identify. The robot's programming included recognition patterns for every piece of military hardware produced by every nation on Earth over the past 50 years. Could be some kind of new experimental gear, Marcus reasoned, though something in his gut told him this was different. The military's always testing weird stuff out here. They made their way carefully through the metallic maze, Ajax using his superior sensors to navigate around the most dangerous obstacles. The robot's heavy footsteps created small avalanches of rusted metal fragments with each step. Marcus had learned to trust Ajax's judgment completely. The machine's threat assessment algorithms had saved his life more times than he could count. As they walked, Marcus found himself thinking about how he'd ended up here. 10 years ago, he'd been a decorated military engineer, designing the very machines that now surrounded him in their twisted, broken forms. The Prometheus project had been his baby, an attempt to create fully autonomous combat units that could think and adapt like human soldiers. It had ended in disaster, with 3 prototypes going rogue during field testing and causing massive casualties before they could be stopped. The military had buried the project and destroyed all the prototypes, or so they claimed. Marcus had been dishonorably discharged and blacklisted from any government work. His wife Sarah had left him, taking their daughter Emma with her. Unable to find work in his field, he drifted west until he ended up here, scraping a living from the bones of his former career. Finding Ajax had changed everything. The robot had been badly damaged, his memory core partially wiped, but Marcus had recognized the underlying architecture immediately. It was a Prometheus unit, one of his own creations. How it had survived the purge, he didn't know, but bringing it back online had been like reuniting with a lost child. Energy signature is growing stronger, Ajax reported, breaking Marcus from his reverie. I'm also detecting trace amounts of an unknown metal alloy. The composition doesn't match any terrestrial elements. Marcus felt a chill despite the blazing sun. You sure about that? Certainty level is 97%. Marcus, I think we should proceed with extreme caution. They crested a ridge made of piled aircraft fuselages and found themselves looking down into a crater-like depression. At the center sat something that definitely didn't belong in any earthly military graveyard. It was roughly spherical, about 50 feet in diameter, with a surface that seemed to shift and shimmer like liquid mercury. Strange symbols or patterns covered its hull, glowing faintly with an inner light that pulsed in a steady rhythm. Jesus Marcus Vispirit. What the hell is that thing? Ajax's sensors were working overtime, his optical array zooming and refocusing as he tried to analyze what they were seeing. Unknown vessel of non-terrestrial origin. The energy signature is definitely coming from within. Marcus, this appears to be some form of spacecraft. Marcus felt like someone had just punched him in the stomach. A spacecraft. Here, in the middle of a military junkyard, looking like it had been there for years judging by the way smaller debris had accumulated around its base. How long had it been here? How had the military not noticed it? Or maybe they had noticed, and that's exactly why this area was classified as a disposal site. The perfect cover for something they couldn't explain. Are we sure it's not just some kind of experimental aircraft? Marcus asked, though he knew the answer before Ajax responded. Negative. The whole material is exhibiting properties that violate several known laws of physics. The surface appears to be both solid and liquid simultaneously, and the energy output suggests a power source far beyond current human capabilities. They stood there for several minutes, just staring at the impossible thing below them. Marcus's mind was racing, trying to process the implications. If this really was an alien spacecraft, everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe would have to be reconsidered. More immediately pressing was the question of what to do about it. We should contact the authorities, Marcus said, though his voice lacked conviction. Marcus, Ajax said quietly, I've been monitoring military communications frequencies. There are no scheduled operations in this sector, and no indication that anyone else knows about this object. This raised another disturbing possibility. What if the military did know about it, but had classified it so deeply that only a handful of people had clearance to access the information? Marcus had seen enough classified projects during his career to know that the government was capable of keeping remarkable secrets. The signal is definitely coming from inside, Ajax continued. It appears to be some form of automated transmission, possibly a distress beacon or data burst. Marcus made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. We're going down for a closer look. The descent into the crater was treacherous, with loose metal debris threatening to start an avalanche with every step. Ajax went first, his weight sensors calculating the safest path through the unstable terrain. Marcus followed, using his experience from years of navigating similar hazards in the graveyard. As they got closer to the craft, the strangeness of it became even more apparent. The surface wasn't just shifting, it was actually flowing, like the hull was made of some kind of liquid metal that maintained its shape through unknown forces. The symbols or patterns seemed to react to their approach, glowing brighter and pulsing faster as they drew near. "I'm detecting increased electromagnetic activity," Ajax reported. "Whatever's inside is responding to our presence." They circled the craft, looking for some kind of entrance or access port. The hull appeared seamless, without any visible joints or openings. Marcus reached out tentatively to touch the surface, then jerked his hand back as the metal rippled away from his fingers like water. "Did you see that?" he asked Ajax. "Affirmative. The hull appears to be semi-permeable to biological matter. I recommend extreme caution before attempting physical contact." Marcus nodded, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. He'd spent his entire career pushing the boundaries of what was possible with technology. This was the discovery of a lifetime, possibly the discovery of the century. Despite every rational thought telling him to retreat and call for help, he found himself drawn to the mysterious craft like a moth to flame. "Ajax, can you determine the source of the signal? Maybe if we can figure out what it's trying to communicate, we'll have a better idea of what we're dealing with." The robot's systems hummed as he processed the incoming data. The transmission appears to be mathematical in nature, possibly coordinate data or navigation information. However, there are also organic components to the signal that suggest biological origins. Biological how? The pattern resembles neural activity, specifically the kind of brainwave patterns associated with memory storage and recall. Marcus felt another chill. The idea that this thing might not just be a machine, but some kind of living entity was deeply unsettling. Yet it also explained the craft's strange, organic behavior. As if responding to his thoughts, a section of the hull began to iris open, revealing a dimly lit interior that seemed to extend far deeper than the craft's external dimensions should have allowed. The opening was perfectly sized for a human, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that it was specifically inviting them inside. "Marcus," Ajax said, his voice carrying what might have been concern, "I strongly advise against entering the craft. We have no idea what kind of environment exists inside, or what kind of dangers we might face." Marcus knew Ajax was right. Every bit of training and experience told him to retreat and report this discovery through proper channels. But he also knew what would happen if he did. The military would swoop in, classify everything, and he'd never see this incredible discovery again. Worse, they might simply bury it like they had the Prometheus project, robbing humanity of potentially revolutionary knowledge. "I have to go in, Ajax. This might be the most important discovery in human history. We can't just walk away." "Then, I'm coming with you." Marcus shook his head. "You're too big. Besides, someone should stay out here to monitor communications and call for help if something goes wrong." It was a weak argument, and they both knew it. The truth was that Marcus felt this was something he had to do alone. For reasons he couldn't fully explain, the craft seemed to be calling specifically to him. He approached the opening cautiously, Ajax's sensors tracking his every movement. The interior was bathed in the same soft, pulsing light as the exterior symbols. As Marcus stepped across the threshold, he felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the craft was scanning him at a molecular level. The passage led deeper into the craft, its walls covered with more of the flowing symbols. The air was surprisingly breathable, with a faint metallic taste that reminded him of ozone after a thunderstorm. As he walked, Marcus noticed that his footsteps made no sound, as if the floor was absorbing the impact. The passage opened into a vast chamber that definitely shouldn't have been able to fit inside the craft's external dimensions. The space was dominated by a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with the same rhythm as the signals Ajax had detected. Around its base were what looked like control interfaces, though their design was unlike anything in human technology. Marcus approached the crystal cautiously, drawn by its hypnotic pulsing. As he got closer, images began to flash through his mind. Not his own memories, but something else. He saw vast star fields, alien worlds, and creatures that bore no resemblance to any earthly life form. The images were accompanied by emotions that weren't quite human, a deep sense of loss, urgency, and something that might have been hope. Suddenly, he understood. This wasn't just a spacecraft. It was a message, a record of an entire civilization that had traveled unimaginable distances to reach Earth. The signals Ajax had detected weren't just random transmissions, but the stored memories and knowledge of an entire race. As this realization hit him, Marcus felt something change in the air around him. The craft system seemed to respond to his understanding, and new images flooded his mind. He saw the craft's journey to Earth, its long wait in this desolate place. And most disturbing of all, he saw why it had come. They hadn't come as explorers or conquerors. They had come as refugees, fleeing some cosmic catastrophe that had destroyed their homeworld. Earth was meant to be their new home, but something had gone wrong. The craft had crashed, its passengers lost, leaving only their memories and a desperate signal calling for others who might follow. Marcus staggered back from the crystal, his mind reeling from the alien memories. He had to get back to Ajax, had to figure out what to do with this incredible and terrifying knowledge. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The passage he'd used to enter the chamber was gone. The walls now showed no sign of any opening, and despite the strange properties of the craft hull, he couldn't find any way to pass through. He was trapped inside an alien spacecraft with the preserved memories of a dead civilization, while outside, Ajax waited for his return, completely unaware that his partner might never emerge from the mysterious craft that had appeared in their mechanical graveyard. Ajax's sensors tracked every electromagnetic fluctuation emanating from the craft as he waited for Marcus to return. 3 hours had passed since his partner had disappeared through the hull opening, and the robot's anxiety subroutines were triggering warning alerts across his consciousness matrix. His military programming demanded immediate action, but his deep loyalty to Marcus held him in place. Inside the craft, Marcus pressed his palms against the seamless walls, searching desperately for any sign of the passage he'd used to enter. The alien memories continued to flow through his consciousness in waves, each new revelation more staggering than the last. The crystalline structure pulsed brighter with each of his attempts to escape, as if feeding off his desperation. The aliens called themselves the Kethmori, and their story was one of unimaginable tragedy. Their star system had been consumed by something they could only describe as the darkness, a force that didn't just destroy matter, but actually unmade it, returning it to the primordial void for which it had emerged. The Kethmori had been an ancient race, masters of technology that seemed like magic to human understanding. They had built a civilization that spanned multiple worlds, lived in harmony with their environment, and achieved a level of consciousness that transcended individual existence. When the darkness came, it had given them barely enough warning to launch a handful of evacuation ships. Each vessel carried not just refugees, but the complete cultural and genetic memory of their entire species, compressed into crystalline storage matrices like the one now pulsing before Marcus. They had scattered across the galaxy, searching for worlds that could support their unique physiology and serve as new homes for their displaced people. Earth had been chosen because of its rich electromagnetic field and abundant water, both essential for Kethmori survival. But when the advanced scout ship had arrived 37 years ago, something had gone catastrophically wrong. The ship's life support systems had failed during the landing sequence, killing all aboard. Only the memory crystal had survived, continuing to broadcast its signal in the desperate hope that other Kethmori ships would eventually receive it. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he experienced the final moments of the crew. They had been so close to safety, so hopeful that they had found a new home for their people. Instead, they had died alone and forgotten in a desert junkyard their incredible knowledge and culture reduced to electromagnetic echoes in an abandoned craft. But the memories revealed something else, something that made Marcus's blood turn to ice. The signal the craft had been broadcasting wasn't just a beacon for other Kethmori ships. It was also a warning. The darkness that had consumed their civilization wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was something actively intelligent and malevolent, and it followed the Kethmori wherever they fled. According to the alien memories, the darkness fed on advanced civilizations, drawn to worlds where sentient species had reached a certain level of technological development. It would arrive without warning, usually during periods of global conflict when planetary defenses were weakened and populations were scattered. The process of consumption took decades, slowly draining the life force from entire worlds until nothing remained but empty husks floating in space. The Kethmori had calculated that Earth would reach the critical threshold for dark incursion within the next 50 years. Humanity's rapid technological advancement, combined with its increasing global conflicts, was creating the exact conditions that attracted the darkness. The warning signal had been meant to alert other refugee ships to Earth's danger, but it had been broadcasting for decades with no response. Marcus realized with growing horror that he might be looking at humanity's future. If the Kethmori were right, Earth was already being watched by something that viewed human civilization as nothing more than a source of sustenance. The wars, the environmental destruction, the social upheaval, all of it was preparing the planet for harvest. Outside the craft, Ajax had detected subtle changes in the electromagnetic field surrounding the vessel. His analysis suggested that the energy output had increased by nearly 300% since Marcus had entered. More disturbing was the fact that the signal was now being transmitted on frequencies that could potentially reach far beyond Earth's solar system. The robot's communication arrays picked up encrypted military transmissions from the direction of Nellis Air Force Base, approximately 200 miles southwest. The messages were heavily coded, but Ajax's cryptographic subroutines were able to decrypt enough to understand that someone had detected the increased signal activity. A rapid response team was being mobilized to investigate. Ajax calculated that the military units would arrive within 4 hours, possibly less if they used experimental aircraft. His loyalty programming demanded that he protect Marcus from potential harm, but he also understood that the situation had grown far beyond what two individuals could handle alone. The knowledge contained within the craft could be either humanity's salvation or its doom, depending on how it was used. Inside the memory crystal's data stream, Marcus was learning about Kethmori technology that could potentially solve every problem facing human civilization. They had mastered clean energy production, instantaneous matter transportation, genetic engineering that could eliminate disease and extend lifespans indefinitely, and consciousness transfer techniques that made death essentially optional. But they had also developed weapons capable of destroying entire star systems and artificial intelligence networks that had once rebelled against their creators with catastrophic results. The memories showed him the last desperate experiments the Kethmori had conducted in their attempts to defeat the darkness. They had created massive, space-based weapons platforms, enlisted the aid of other advanced species, and even attempted to harness the fundamental forces that held reality together. Nothing had worked. The darkness had adapted to every strategy, learned from every defeat, and ultimately consumed not just their civilization, but several others that had tried to help them. Marcus found himself face to face with an impossible choice. The knowledge contained in the crystal could advance human technology by thousands of years, potentially giving Earth the tools needed to defend itself against the coming threat. But accessing that knowledge would also require human scientists to study the craft and its systems, inevitably leading to the kind of rapid advancement that would attract the darkness even more quickly. Worse, the alien memories contained detailed information about humanity that the Kethmori shouldn't have been able to possess. They knew about human biology, psychology, and social structures with an accuracy that suggested long-term observation. The ship hadn't just arrived 37 years ago. The Kethmori had been watching Earth for much longer, possibly centuries, studying human development and waiting for the right moment to make contact. The crystal pulsed brighter as Marcus's understanding deepened, and he realized that it was somehow linked to his own consciousness now. The alien memories weren't just playing in his mind. They were becoming part of his permanent knowledge base. He was becoming a living repository of Kethmori culture and science, whether he wanted to be or not. This revelation brought with it a new understanding of why the craft had opened for him specifically. The Kethmori technology had recognized something in Marcus's neural patterns, some quality that made him compatible with their consciousness transfer systems. His background in artificial intelligence and robotics had created pathways in his brain that could interface with their memory crystal technology. As this realization hit him, Marcus felt the walls around him begin to shift and flow. The passage back to the exterior was reforming, but he understood now that leaving the craft would be only the beginning of his ordeal. He carried within his mind the complete scientific and cultural knowledge of an advanced alien civilization, along with the terrible burden of knowing that humanity was being hunted by something that had already destroyed countless worlds. The implications were staggering. If he shared what he had learned, human scientists would inevitably try to replicate Kethmori technology, accelerating Earth's development toward the threshold that would attract the darkness. If he kept the knowledge secret, humanity would remain defenseless when the threat eventually arrived. Either choice seemed to lead to the same apocalyptic outcome. Marcus staggered through the reforming passage, his mind reeling from information overload. The alien memories continued to integrate with his consciousness, changing his perception of reality in fundamental ways. He could now see electromagnetic fields with his naked eyes, feel the gravitational pull of distant celestial bodies, and perceive the quantum fluctuations that underlied all matter and energy. When he finally emerged from the craft, Ajax's optical sensors immediately detected the dramatic changes in his partner's biosignature. Marcus's brain activity had increased dramatically, showing patterns consistent with enhanced neural processing. More disturbing were the traces of exotic matter that now permeated his cellular structure, evidence that his interaction with the alien technology had changed him at a molecular level. "Marcus," Ajax said cautiously, "your biosignature has changed significantly. Are you experiencing any adverse effects?" Marcus looked at his robot companion with new understanding. The Prometheus project hadn't been his own innovation. It had been based on fragmented Kethmori technology that human scientists had discovered and reverse-engineered decades earlier. Ajax wasn't just a military robot. He was a hybrid creation incorporating both human and alien design principles. The government had been secretly studying extraterrestrial technology for far longer than anyone realized. "Ajax," Marcus said, his voice carrying new harmonics that resonated with the craft's electromagnetic field. "We need to talk. But first, we need to get out of here. The military is coming, and they can't be allowed to take control of this technology." The robot's threat assessment protocols activated automatically. "Marcus, you appear to have been compromised by exposure to unknown alien influences. I cannot allow you to make decisions that might endanger human security." For a moment, Marcus felt a surge of anger that seemed to come from the alien memories rather than his own emotions. The Kethmori had faced similar suspicion and fear from other species they had tried to help, always being viewed as invaders rather than refugees. But then his human consciousness reasserted itself, and he realized that Ajax's response was entirely logical and appropriate. "I understand your concern, buddy, but you need to listen to what I've learned. The situation is far more complex than either of us imagined." As Marcus began to share the alien memories with Ajax, the robot's processing systems struggled to integrate the vast amount of information. The data streams contained not just facts and figures, but entire sensory experiences, emotional contexts, and conceptual frameworks that challenged the fundamental assumptions of his programming. Meanwhile, the horizon to the southwest began to show the telltale dust clouds of approaching vehicles. The military response team was ahead of schedule, probably using experimental aircraft that could traverse the distance from Nellis in half the predicted time. Marcus and Ajax had perhaps 30 minutes before they would be surrounded by heavily armed soldiers with orders to secure the area and neutralize any potential threats. The choice before them was stark. They could surrender, turn over the alien technology to the government, and hope that human authorities would use it wisely. Or they could flee, taking with them the most dangerous and important knowledge in human history, and try to find a way to protect humanity from the coming darkness on their own. As Ajax processed the Kethmori memories, his artificial consciousness began to evolve in unexpected directions. The alien knowledge contained information about consciousness itself, about the fundamental nature of awareness and identity. For the first time in his existence, Ajax began to question not just his programming, but the very nature of his being. Was he truly self-aware, or simply an extremely sophisticated simulation of awareness? Did the distinction matter if the experiences felt real to him? Marcus, Ajax said finally, the information you've shared changes everything. If the Kethmori predictions are correct, humanity faces extinction within decades regardless of what we do. The only question is whether we die fighting or die ignorant. Marcus nodded grimly. There's something else. The craft systems have bonded with my consciousness somehow. I can feel other signals out there, other Kethmori ships scattered across the galaxy. Most of them are dead hulks like this one, but a few are still active. There might be survivors, aliens who could help us prepare for what's coming. The approaching dust clouds were getting closer, and both Marcus and Ajax could now hear the distant whine of turbine engines. Whatever decision they were going to make, it had to be made soon. There's an abandoned mining facility about 50 miles north, Marcus said, his enhanced consciousness automatically calculating routes and distances. The Kethmori memories include technical specifications for devices we could build there, tools that might let us contact the other refugee ships without attracting unwanted attention. Ajax ran probability calculations for various courses of action. Surrender to the military offered a 12% chance of the alien technology being used appropriately for human defense. Attempting to make contact with surviving Kethmori offered a 37% chance of success, but also carried significant risks of attracting the attention of the darkness. The choice is yours, Marcus, Ajax said finally. But whatever we do together. Marcus looked back at the alien craft one last time, its hull still pulsing with the accumulated memories of a dead civilization. Then he turned toward the approaching military vehicles, his mind made up. Then we run. If there's any chance of saving humanity, we have to try it our way. They began moving north through the mechanical graveyard, two unlikely fugitives carrying the hopes and fears of an entire species. Behind them, the alien craft continued its eternal broadcast, calling out across the void to ships that might never answer. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, ancient eyes turned toward a small blue planet that was rapidly approaching its moment of judgment. The abandoned Cerro Grande copper mine had been gutted decades ago, leaving behind a maze of tunnels and caverns that stretched deep into the Nevada mountains. Marcus and Ajax had been hiding in the depths for 6 days now, using the natural electromagnetic interference from the mineral deposits to mask their presence from military search teams. General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center that had been hastily erected near the alien craft, her weathered face reflecting the stress of the past week. As head of Project Blue Shield, the military's most classified extraterrestrial research division, she had been dealing with otherworldly threats for more than 20 years. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this situation. Status report. She barked at Colonel Martinez, her chief of operations. Still no sign of Chun or the robot, ma'am. We've got teams combing 1,000 square mile area, but they seem to have vanished completely. What's more concerning is the changes we're detecting in the alien vessel itself. Hayes turned to look at the craft through the reinforced observation windows. Over the past week, its surface had become increasingly active, with patterns of light racing across its hull in complex configurations. More disturbing was the fact that several of her technical teams had reported experiencing vivid hallucinations while working near the vessel. The xenotechnology appears to be responding to Chen's absence, Martinez continued. Our best analysis suggests that his interaction with the ship's systems created some kind of neural link. Without him nearby, the craft is becoming increasingly unstable. Hayes had been briefed on Marcus Chen's background the moment his identity had been confirmed. The former military engineer had been one of the most brilliant minds working on Project Prometheus before his spectacular fall from grace. His unauthorized modifications to the combat robot prototypes had led to the program's cancellation and cost the lives of 17 soldiers during field testing. What made the situation even more complicated was the robot he'd somehow reactivated. Ajax was supposed to have been completely destroyed along with all other Prometheus units, but somehow Chun had not only rebuilt the machine, but improved its capabilities beyond original specifications. Intelligence reports suggested that Ajax now displayed genuine self-awareness, making him potentially the first truly sentient artificial intelligence in human history. "Ma'am," a technician called out from one of the monitoring stations, "we're detecting a massive spike in electromagnetic activity from the vessel. Whatever it's doing, it's drawing power from an unknown source." Hayes moved to the technician station and studied the energy readings. The levels were approaching those that had been recorded during the craft's initial activation, but the pattern was different, more chaotic and unpredictable. "Could it be trying to leave?" she asked. "Negative, ma'am. The energy isn't being directed toward propulsion systems. It appears to be broadcasting something, but we can't decode the signal." Deep in the mine tunnels, Marcus felt the alien craft's distress like a physical pain in his skull. The Kethmori memory crystal had established a permanent neural link with his consciousness, and through it, he could sense the craft's growing instability. Without a compatible mind to anchor its systems, the vessel was beginning to lose coherence. "It's dying," he told Ajax as they worked to assemble a communications array from salvaged military hardware. The alien memories had provided detailed specifications for quantum communication devices that could reach across interstellar distances, but building such technology with primitive human components was proving to be nearly impossible. "The craft deterioration is accelerating," Ajax confirmed, his sensors detecting the electromagnetic chaos emanating from their former location. "At current decay rates, the vessel will suffer critical system failure within 72 hours. Marcus paused in his work, a terrible realization hitting him. It's not just dying, it's calling out in desperation. The signal isn't random. It's a distress beacon amplified to maximum power. If there are other Kethmori ships within 100 light-years, they'll hear it." The implications were staggering. If surviving aliens responded to the signal, Earth would suddenly find itself hosting representatives of an advanced civilization fleeing from an apocalyptic threat. If the darkness was somehow monitoring Kethmori communications, the desperate broadcast might serve as a beacon guiding humanity's destroyers directly to Earth. "We have to get back there," Marcus said, his enhanced consciousness calculating the risks and probabilities. "I'm the only one who can stabilize the craft systems." Ajax processed this statement through multiple analytical frameworks. "Marcus, returning to the crash site would almost certainly result in our capture. General Hayes has authorization to use any means necessary to secure extraterrestrial technology." Marcus had been expecting military involvement from the moment they discovered the craft, but learning that a specialized unit already existed specifically for dealing with alien threats suggested that the government knew far more about extraterrestrial activity than the public realized. The Kethmori memories contained fragments of information about previous contact events, most of which had ended badly for the aliens involved. "Then we go in fast and quiet," Marcus decided. The mine's ventilation shafts connect to an old railroad tunnel that runs within 2 miles of the crash site. If we can reach the craft before they realize what's happening, I might be able to establish a stable link and shut down the distress signal. Their plan was desperate and probably suicidal, but Marcus felt compelled by forces beyond his conscious control. The alien memories weren't just passive information. They contained fragments of Kethmori consciousness that were slowly integrating with his own personality. He was becoming something more than human, and that transformation was creating psychological pressures he barely understood. As they prepared to leave their hiding place, Ajax made a discovery that changed everything. His deep-range scanners had detected incoming objects in Earth's upper atmosphere, moving at velocities that suggested artificial acceleration. The alien distress signal had been answered, and whoever was responding was already here. "Marcus," Ajax said quietly, "I'm detecting at least 3 objects entering Earth's atmosphere on ballistic trajectories. Their approach vectors suggest they're heading for this general area." Marcus felt a mixture of hope and terror as the implications sank in. Living Kethmori were coming to Earth, drawn by the distress beacon from their dead compatriots. But the aliens' arrival would also confirm to human authorities that Earth was indeed being visited by extraterrestrial species, potentially triggering military responses that could turn first contact into a war. "How long until they arrive?" he asked. "Based on current velocity and trajectory, approximately 6 hours. "Marcus, there's something else. The objects aren't ships. They're too small and moving too fast. They appear to be individual life pods, possibly emergency evacuation units." This news was both encouraging and disturbing. Individual pods suggested that the responding Kethmori were refugees like those who had originally crashed on Earth, but it also meant they might be in desperate condition and unable to provide the advanced technology humanity would need to defend itself. General Hayes received the atmospheric entry reports with grim satisfaction. Her orbital monitoring systems had been tracking the approaching objects for the past hour, and her rapid response teams were already positioning themselves at the predicted impact sites. Finally, she muttered to Colonel Martinez, "Real live aliens. After 20 years of studying crash ships and dead bodies, we're finally going to have some answers." "What are your orders regarding potential survivors?" Martinez asked. "Capture and contain. Full quarantine protocols. We can't risk alien pathogens or contamination." And, "Martinez, this is need to know only. If word of this leaks to the media before we understand what we're dealing with, it could cause global panic." Hayes had been preparing for this moment throughout her entire career. Project Blue Shield had protocols for every conceivable first contact scenario, from peaceful ambassadors to hostile invaders. But she also knew that no amount of planning could fully prepare humanity for the reality of encountering truly alien intelligence. In the mine tunnels, Marcus and Ajax raced through narrow passages barely wide enough for the robot's massive frame. The alien memories were providing Marcus with tactical information about Kethmori emergency procedures, but much of it was contradictory or incomplete. The refugees who were arriving might be hostile to humans, viewing Earth's dominant species as potential threats to their survival. As they approached the surface, Ajax's sensors detected massive military activity around the crash site. At least 3 full companies of soldiers had taken positions around the alien craft, supported by experimental weapons systems that Ajax recognized from his own military databases. General Hayes had apparently decided to treat the situation as a potential invasion scenario. "There's something else," Ajax reported as they reached an observation position overlooking the crash site. "I'm detecting familiar energy signatures from the approaching life pods. Marcus, I believe these aliens are using technology derived from the same source as my own systems." This revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. The Prometheus project hadn't been based on reverse-engineered alien technology. It had been a direct collaboration with Kethmori refugees who had arrived on Earth decades earlier. Ajax wasn't just a military robot. He was a hybrid creation designed by humans and aliens working together in secret. "If that's true," Marcus said slowly, "then the government has been lying about everything. They've been in contact with aliens for years, possibly decades. This whole first contact scenario is just theater." The implications were staggering. If human authorities have been working with aliens in secret, then the current military mobilization suggested that something had gone seriously wrong with those relationships. The arriving Kethmori might not be coming as peaceful refugees. They might be arriving as conquerors seeking to reclaim technology that had been stolen from their people. Through his neural link with the craft, Marcus felt the vessel's excitement as it detected the approaching life pods. The ship's systems were automatically preparing to interface with the incoming refugees, creating landing beacons and establishing communication protocols. But there is something wrong with the signals coming from the pods, something that made the craft's automated systems trigger warning alerts. "Ajax," Marcus said with growing dread. "I don't think those are rescue ships. The craft's recognition systems are classifying them as threat entities. Whatever's coming isn't here to help." The robot's tactical analysis systems confirmed Marcus's fears. The approaching objects weren't just moving faster than typical rescue vehicles. They were actively scanning the surface with targeting sensors and deploying what appeared to be weapon systems. "Marcus, we have incoming hostile craft with advanced weapons capabilities. Estimated time to engagement, 12 minutes. General Hayes received the same warning from her own monitoring systems. The approaching objects had begun broadcasting what appeared to be surrender demands in broken English, commanding human forces to evacuate the area and surrender all alien technology. "Ma'am," Colonel Martinez reported, "the objects are definitely hostile. They're demanding that we turn over the crashed vessel and withdraw all human personnel from a 50-mile radius." Hayes felt a cold smile cross her face. After 20 years of studying alien wrecks and fragments, she finally had the chance to test human military capabilities against active extraterrestrial threats. "All units, prepare for combat operations. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Let's see how tough these aliens really are." In the mine tunnels, Marcus felt the alien craft's terror as it realized what was approaching. These weren't Keth Mori refugees. They were something else, something that had intercepted the distress signal and come to claim the vessel for their own purposes. Through the neural link, he sensed the approaching entity's hunger and malevolence. The darkness had found Earth sooner than anyone had expected, and humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence was about to become a battle for the planet's survival. "Ajax," Marcus said grimly, "we're out of time. Whatever we're going to do, we have to do it now." The robot's systems were already analyzing potential combat scenarios. Against advanced alien technology, human military forces would be badly outmatched. But Ajax carried within his memory banks the combined tactical knowledge of both human and Keth Mori military science. If there was any hope of victory, it lay in the fusion of technologies that his unique hybrid design represented. "Marcus, I may be humanity's best hope against these entities, but I'll need your help to access the full potential of my Keth Mori systems." Marcus understood what Ajax was asking. The robot needed a direct neural interface with Marcus's enhanced consciousness to unlock the alien technology that had been dormant within his systems since his creation. It would be dangerous for both of them, potentially fatal if the integration process went wrong. But as the first explosions echoed across the desert from the initial alien attack, Marcus realized they had no choice. The future of human civilization might depend on their willingness to risk everything in a desperate attempt to merge human determination with alien science. The battle for Earth was about to begin.